Of course, millions all across America getting ready for that first total solar eclipse in almost a century that is just hours away.
And our team is spread out across the country as well, from the Pacific Northwest to the Deep South. World News Tonight anchor David Muir in Charleston all day for our special coverage. We're going to have a lot more on that coming up. To Charleston, South Carolina, where we find World News Tonight anchor David Muir. Good morning to you, David, in one of my favorite cities.
It is a great city. It's going to be a little dark here come later today, though, Aim. And if you had a magic marker and you started in Oregon and went right across the country down to South Carolina, that is the path of this total solar eclipse. We haven't seen a total solar eclipse here in the U.S. since 1979, but here's the really cool part this morning. We haven't seen one travel from coast to coast in this country in 99 years. The skies will darken. You'll see that corona around the sun, but a few other things will happen, too. Temperatures will drop about 10 to 12 degrees. And watch the animals. The birds get very confused. It's going to be a sight.
Infinite miles of cars, millions of people descending upon small towns like Madras, Oregon. So many like 10-year-old Amico, eager to see the day turn into night. A total solar eclipse happens somewhere on Earth about twice every 3 years, often in remote areas, but this time the first one on the continental U.S. in nearly 4 decades.
This is an ABC News special. Live coverage of the solar eclipse.
The date, February 26, 1979. At the news desk, Frank Reynolds.
Good morning. This is indeed a special events broadcast of a genuine special event. The last total eclipse of the sun over the continent this century.
Onlookers back then peering through what was considered protective eyewear. All eyes were on the sky in Maryhill, Washington. The heavens there beginning to darken. Then that awesome sight, the moon blacking out the sky, and minutes later, the light returning, bathing the crowd.
Not until August 21st, 2017, will another eclipse be visible from North America. That's 38 years from now.
And that day has come, and here's how it'll work. Beginning around 10:15 Pacific, the moon will move directly between the sun and the Earth, casting a massive shadow that will briefly darken areas in 14 states along what's called the Path of Totality, 70 miles wide and 3,000 miles long. It'll take about 1 hour, 33 minutes, and it'll be the first time in 99 years that a total solar eclipse will span the entire continental U.S. Some hoping to spot it from the air, like these passengers did on board an Alaska Airlines flight last year, far out over the Pacific. Viewers along this line in Makanda, Illinois, will experience the longest amount of darkness, 2 minutes and 40.2 seconds. And Hopkinsville, Kentucky, dubbed Eclipseville.
We're going to view it underwater.
That's right, scuba divers watching with the fish. And these NASA pilots chasing the eclipse in 2 retrofitted bombers with telescopes mounted in the nose.
We'll go into total darkness for about 4 minutes for each aircraft.
And just as Frank Reynolds promised all those years ago, we'll be here through it all.
May the shadow of the moon fall on a world at peace. And ABC News, of course, will bring you a complete report on that next eclipse 38 years from now.
And who knew we'd be the ones fulfilling Frank Reynolds' promise all these years later? But we are proud to be here with an incredible team from ABC News, meteorologists and reporters across this country this afternoon to witness it with you, 1 p.m. Eastern right here on ABC. Set your DVR if you have to head out to work. And Amy, keep this in mind. The moon's shadow travels so fast across this country at speeds of 1,800 miles per hour on average. It'll take about 1 hour and 33 minutes to get from one end of the country to the other, far faster than a commercial jetliner, but we'll be there every step of the way.
And we will be watching, David. Thanks so much.
I want to go back to World News Tonight anchor David Muir. He's in Charleston, where he'll lead our coverage later today. Hey, David.
Hey, George, you know, you missed it last week on GMA. We called it all week the Great American Eclipse of the Heart, just for Amy and Robin because of that song. And Bonnie's going to be part of our coverage later today as well. But, you know, this is going to be an incredible thing to witness. Keep in mind that these eclipses aren't terribly uncommon. They happen about once a year, but because of the vast size of the Earth, it usually happens well out, you know, over the water or in a very remote part of the Earth. This is the first time in 38 years that Americans will be able to see it right here in the U.S. And as I mentioned at the top of the hour, the first time in 99 years that it'll actually travel coast to coast across the entire country. And the numbers are really staggering. 12.2 million Americans actually live in this ribbon, this path of totality that crisscrosses the country. And think about this, another 200 million Americans live within a day's drive. And those are the images that we've been seeing, not just in the last 24 to 48 hours, but for a good week now. Hotel rooms across the country have been booked for years for this. And I want to turn to ABC's Matt Gutman, who's with us in Oregon, which, of course, is the first state in the path of totality. But, Matt, there's some challenges there this morning as well.
Hey, David, there's a reason that over 100,000 people and NASA chose this beautiful site because it was supposed to offer the most perfect view of the eclipse. There are a couple of challenges. First was this apocalyptic traffic getting in here, people waiting 4 hours just to get to this part of Oregon. And then there's that haze caused by smoke in the air, multiple wildfires burning just outside the area of totality for the eclipse. The governor declaring a fire emergency to free up resources. Over 600 people ordered to evacuate, 1,000 others put on notice. And one of the people we met here at the Eclipse Solar Fest here in Oregon sent us these pictures. You can see the smoke filling the sky. Now, this place was billed as a mini Woodstock. We are on a farm after all, and even if the viewing of the eclipse might be slightly affected, I can tell you the party atmosphere will not be dampened.
Let's head over to Charleston, South Carolina. David Muir is live there now. He's going to be anchoring a 2-hour network special starting very, very shortly. And that is where the eclipse will leave America. David, what's the scene there right now?
You know, Amna and Walter, this is so incredibly exciting. And as you mentioned, South Carolina is at the end of that sort of ribbon, that 70-mile ribbon that's going to go clear across the country. You know, I was saying on Good Morning America that if you have a sort of a marker on a map and you start up in Oregon and you just draw diagonally across the map, that is going to be the path of this this moment, this moon shadow, if you will, totality across the country, 14 states. And the numbers are really fun. 12.2 million Americans in the path of totality. And then another 200 million Americans are within a day's drive, which explains why in some places like Madras, Oregon, they haven't had a room available in months. And in fact, I think there was one that came on a couple of weeks ago, $1,400 a night for the days in.
What?
Wow. So anyway, people are really interested.
That is incredible. They say it's going to be the most watched, most tweeted, most shared eclipse in American history. David Muir out there at the end of the eclipse for us. And stay with us here. He's going to be anchoring a 2-hour special starting very, very shortly. David, how are the skies looking, though? You have clear skies so far?
You know what, we have a mix here, and you know, we're staying on top of the People's Building here in Charleston, and the woman who's letting us use her place here promises me, she said, you know, I have good luck. So I have a feeling, listen, it's going to get really dark and we're going to witness a dramatic change here. And we will have seen what happens across the entire country. So I'm happy with anything, to be honest. I'm kind of geeking out. This is like middle school all over again, only we get to do this all on television. And as you point out, it's trending. You know, obviously the solar eclipse is trending, but Total Eclipse of the Heart is trending right afterward. And it's the #1 song on iTunes again. Go Bonnie Tyler.
Yeah. Good for Bonnie Tyler.
She's got that comeback.
David Muir, thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you shortly.
Tonight, as we come on the air in the West, tens of thousands of Americans still trying to get home after the eclipse. 99 years since the last total solar eclipse to cross the entire country, from the West Coast to the East.
The crowd here is absolutely ecstatic.
From Oregon to Idaho, Wyoming to Nebraska, Missouri to Illinois, Kentucky to Tennessee to South Carolina. In small towns, on farms, in national parks, Americans looking to the sky.
There it is.
And tonight, our team in the middle of the backup across multiple states.
Here in the U.S. tonight, we are seeing images of the long lines of traffic hours after the great American eclipse. The total solar eclipse, the first seen coast to coast across America in nearly a century. This NASA satellite image showing the shadow of the moon moving across the country. And down here, millions drawn together to take in the breathtaking view from Oregon to the Adler Planetarium in Chicago to Times Square in New York City. But tonight, those traffic issues and the stunning sights that began in the West. ABC senior national correspondent Matt Gutman from Oregon tonight.
After so much anticipation, it arrived right on schedule. The celestial matinee turning night today in
America in nearly a century. This NASA satellite image showing the shadow of the moon moving across the country. And down here, millions drawn together to take in the breathtaking view from Oregon to the Adler Planetarium in Chicago to Times Square in New York City. But tonight, those traffic issues and the stunning sights that began in the West. ABC senior national correspondent Matt Gutman from Oregon tonight.
After so much anticipation, it arrived right on schedule. The celestial matinee turning night today in Lincoln City, Oregon, the first stop for totality.
Oh my, it is just absolutely spectacular. Look how dark it is, how quiet it is. The air is still. This is like being in the eye of a hurricane.
Next up, the place known as Solar City.
I'm almost speechless. The crowd here is absolutely ecstatic. I'm going to have our cameraman, Glenn, turn down the lights so you actually get a sense of how... Turn it off, Glenn. Let's see how dark it really is. It's pitch black here. This is the most incredible thing I've ever seen.
Madras, Oregon going dark for 2 minutes and 4 seconds. Then that sliver of sun coming back.
100,000 people just in this part of Oregon outside of Madras, feasting their eyes on a spectacle that many of us will never get to see again.
The shadow marching eastward, averaging 1,800 miles an hour, reaching a place known as Carhenge in Alliance, Nebraska. American cars forming a replica of Stonehenge built by a family 30 years ago.
38 cars rescued from nearby farms, from the dumps. They painted them all gray, but right now you can't see the color. You can just see the outline of them under that extraordinary moment there.
The spectacle landing in city after city, including the so-called capital of the eclipse, Carbondale, Illinois. But Carbondale, which should have had 2 minutes and 41 seconds of darkness, was darkened by something else. Clouds.
You guys have brought us into the drama. You've got 45 seconds there, and it all depends on the weather system above you.
Thousands who traveled there crestfallen.
They're looking up because this might be the only and best shot of it they get.
But then, with just seconds left, the clouds part.
There it is. There it is.
What an extraordinary gift right there in the last final few seconds.
In Kelly, Kentucky, something else emerges in the sky.
And we can see Venus at this point here in Kelly, Kentucky.
I love the fact that you can see Venus.
Even the president stepping out of the White House to watch. Finally, the last major stop for the Great American Eclipse, Charleston, South Carolina. The clouds cooperating.
You know, it really puts us in our place as far as our role in the cosmos, doesn't it? The fact that we here on Earth are part of something much bigger.
And then sky gazers starting to make the long journey home. In remote Rigby, Idaho, bumper-to-bumper traffic for miles.
This traffic jam started precisely as the eclipse ended. People already had packed, gotten into their cars.
One family heading back to California.
And how long do you expect that to take you with this traffic?
About 20 hours.
20 hours? Was it worth it? 20 hours?
Oh, yeah!
As it was for a nation of Americans soaking up the Great American Eclipse.
I love their answer there. It was a resounding yes, it was worth it. Matt Gutman joins us live tonight from Madras, Oregon. The total eclipse was really stunning across this country, Matt, but right where you kicked it off in the Pacific Northwest. Hours earlier, we saw those traffic lines, and you were reporting into the newsroom that many people have decided to simply spend another night there.
That's right, Dave. If you can't escape the Great American Eclipse, you hunker down. Now, the single road out of here is still bumper to bumper, and some folks waited 3 hours just to get out of this parking lot. And I stopped one motorist and I asked her, was it worth it? And she had a brilliant answer. She said it was totality worth it. David?
I see what you did there, Matt Gutman. Our thanks to you. And yeah, they'll remember the eclipse long after the traffic, I gather. Matt Gutman, thanks for your reporting all day long. There were so many powerful, breathtaking images, and we have a couple of quick questions tonight. Let's bring in senior meteorologist Rob Marciano, who's with us all afternoon. He's in Lincoln City, Oregon as well tonight out west. And first, Rob, the temperature change. So much talk going into this total solar eclipse would be that the temperature would drop when darkness fell. How much did we actually see it go down?
Well, it's certainly something that you see and feel. Depends on where you were. Here on the coastline, it dropped a good 6 degrees, but areas inland like Casper, Wyoming, 12-degree drop in just 2 minutes. It really reminds you just how important our sun is, and honestly, it's a bit scary when it just disappears instantly like that, David.
And we saw those images, Rob, all afternoon. They were really stunning. It's the corona, which we don't see with the naked eye down here on Earth, but during the total solar eclipse, you're able to see it. You know, the atmosphere surrounding the sun. What are NASA scientists hoping to learn from that?
Oh, well, it's something that they can't really study except for an eclipse. So it's the sun finally blocked by the moon. You see that atmosphere, that white hot plasma reaching into space, a hydrogen throwing flares of red and other colors. It's an unbelievable show. It's an eerie, but as you know, David, awesome spectacle. David?
Well, Rob, I know you reported for many years from the Pacific Northwest. Great to see you back there tonight. Rob Marciano with us. Rob, thanks. When we come back here, a total solar eclipse. We'll be back in just 7 years, and in a moment, you'll see the track. Which states get it next time? Finally tonight, you won't have to wait as long for the next total solar eclipse. 14 states in the path in 2024. Bill Nye, the Science Guy, this was such an incredible moment that so many millions across this country were able to witness together. It's a moment of unity, but it's also a reminder of our place in the cosmos.
This is extraordinary that humankind has figured out that we live on a big sphere orbiting another sphere with a smaller sphere orbiting us. And once in a while, these things line up, and we experience totality today.
Bill, I know you've seen this before, but when you think about, the families who gathered along this route across America and so many populated cities being in the path, that people were able to see a moment in their lifetime.
Absolutely. It was spectacular. First of all, it's awe-inspiring. It's spectacular. The moon covers the sun. It goes dark. The crickets were chirping. And then the other thing is appreciate that we're able to predict it and understand it to within fractions of a second.
You say our place in space. It's hard to believe that at one point it used to instill fear. We know so much more about what happens in a total solar eclipse now than they used to centuries ago.
I mean, it would be a really troubling thing if you didn't understand it. But fortunately, we humans living now in the 21st century understand it with extraordinary precision.
Bill, we know there's another trajectory, almost the opposite, from Texas up through the middle of the country into the Northeast in 2024. We don't have to wait as long.
We have the good fortune of living at a time where they're sweeping right across the U.S.
So, Bill Nye, the Science Guy, I'll meet you right back here in 2024.
You'll see you then. Carry on.
Let's all meet in 2024, and we'll meet again tomorrow night. Good night.